Rob Dingle and welcome to a bonus episode of Dingle DIY. I recently had a subscriber ask me if I could do just a quick show of the intercooler setup on my Hilux here. So I'm just going to run you through what I've done and just some pros and cons and the ideal ways to set things up and the way that I've set it up. So we'll jump into the engine bay and have a quick look at the intercooler. Alright, we'll start here with the snorkel. I put this on the driver's side. Normally, if you use the factory airbox, it would go on the passenger side. Now, when it is on the passenger side, the air, once it's been filtered, it would come over the top of the engine, into the turbo, out of the turbo and into the inlet manifold. So I didn't quite like the idea of the air going into the engine crossing over twice. I think it's just unnecessary heat. So I've relocated the battery to that side, built a custom airbox here, and also personal preference is having the snorkel close to the window. I get to hear all the whooshy noises from the turbo, which is always a bonus for me. So we've got the snorkel into this airbox, and then it runs out of the airbox into the turbo and into this water to air intercooler. Now, once you've got your compressed air from the turbo, it runs through this intercooler here, which cools down your charged air, which would just give you better efficiency, more power, things like that. You can turn the boost up and be a bit happier with keeping the engine reliable. So because it's a water to air intercooler, there are these coolant hoses running through it, which kind of adds a bit of complexity to the whole system, but it also helps with the packaging. You can use a much smaller intercooler here, so it'll fit, and then you've got the heat exchange happening at the front with an extra. It's basically like a radiator. So this is our intercooler. We've got these water pipes. So here's a pump right here. I'll get some close-ups in a sec, and that's what drives it all. So this pump cycles water through. So from the pump into the intercooler, out into like a swirl pot, like a overflow kind of a setup. So you get all the air bubbles out of the system, and then from there to the front heat exchanger, and then the cycle starts all over again. So the way I've set it up is kind of ideal for packaging and aesthetics, believe it or not. The best way to get the most out of your intercooler is to have the coldest water closest to where the air enters the engine. So in an ideal world, this connection from the pump would actually go up here instead of here. But like I said, for packaging, it's just how I worked it out with the room I have. So that's just one thing to keep in mind. Now, specifically for this car, I had to make my own flange. Alright, take two, flat battery. So I had to make my own custom flange, and from there I can bolt to the factory inlet. Now I've just got a 90-degree elbow coming off that into the intercooler, 90-degree elbow, and a 45 and a 45 to kind of snake it all together. Now you can buy pretty nifty silicon joiners these days. So the 45 coupling off the turbo has a reducer in it as well, so that I think it goes from 2.5 inch or 2 3/4 for the intercooler. It's down to 2 1/4 on the turbo, thereabouts. So that's this setup. I'll just show you, if I can, how I ran the hoses to the heat exchanger and the overflow setup and things like that. So this is the heat exchanger sitting in front. It pokes past the custom grill that I made just a bit, but it's the only way I could really get it to fit without doing anything too extreme. So that's where our coolant gets cooled down, and then it comes out of the heat exchanger, a hose running underneath this airbox into the pump. The pump pushes it through the intercooler, and there's water galleries in here which take the heat out of the compressed air, and that runs into the highest point of the whole system so I can bleed the air out, and then from there back into the heat exchanger. Now it's not technically the most efficient way, but once again it's just packaging.
Hello. What's going on?
Just doing a walk around of my intercooler setup as per request.
Okay, cool.
You inspired? Alright, one thing to consider as well is there are a few sensors that just bolt as a mounting position to the factory crossover pipe, which I've relocated onto this bracket here. You've got to, if you do the custom airbox, you've got to extend the wiring to the airbox. Now for the overflow, I've just got a drink bottle hiding in here. It does the trick, doesn't really go anywhere. This is what I had to make it work. Now, as I said, for you to bleed it properly, this needs to be the highest point out of the whole system, so all the air rises to the top. This is just the custom flange I made. Now, if you're wondering about this ugly duct tape on here, I've taped some rubber to the back of this and to these water lines. You don't want anything rubbing through and creating leaks, so there's a bit of that going on in this engine bay. Same with this. That's just to protect metal on metal rubbing. And that's it. Alright, that wraps that up. If you want to check out more content on this car, I've done a diff drop install tutorial and a front diff locker tutorial. So feel free to check those out, give us a thumbs up and a subscribe, and we'll see you on the next video.